James and Rachel married after a whirlwind romance with 2 beautiful kids, but unbeknownst to Rachel, James had a dark secret. James knew Rachel was an orphan, raised by kind-hearted nuns. He thought this made her vulnerable and powerless. After they had their second born, James's demeanor changed. He became controlling, belittling Rachel's opinions and feelings. "You're just an orphan, nobody wanted you," James would say, his words cutting deep. Rachel tried to overlook James's behavior, hoping love would conquer all. But the verbal abuse escalated. James mocked Rachel's family background, saying she was ungrateful and lucky he married her. Rachel felt trapped, her self-worth shattered. She began questioning her own worth. One fateful night, James's physical abuse started. Rachel's screams echoed through their home, neighbors intervened, and separated their fight. James's verbal abuse escalated, constantly reminding Rachel of her past. "You're just an orphan, nobody wanted you," he'd say, his words piercing her soul. Rachel felt trapped, her self-worth shattered. James's words became a mantra, echoing in her mind. One evening, James's anger boiled over again. He slapped Rachel, leaving a bruise on her cheek. "You're lucky I took you in," James sneered. "No one else wanted you." Rachel's tears fell silently as James's fists kept coming. She counted the beats, wondering when it would stop. The abuse became routine. James would apologize, promising change, but the cycle continued. Rachel lost count of the bruises, the broken bones, and the sleepless nights. James's words haunted her. "You're nothing without me." Rachel's identity was erased, replaced by fear and submission. As James's abuse escalated, Rachel knew she had to escape. She thought about divorce, but fear gripped her. Where would she go? She had no family to turn to, no home to call her own. The orphanage where she grew up was long gone, and the nuns who raised her had retired. Rachel felt alone, with no safety net. She confided in a friend, Sarah, who urged her to leave James. But Rachel hesitated, paralyzed by uncertainty. "What if I end up on the streets?" Rachel asked Sarah, tears streaming down her face. "What about my kids? Who will take care of them, oh God? I don't want to raise them without a father," Rachel said with tears streaming down her eyes. Sarah offered her home, but Rachel refused. She didn't want to burden her friend. One sleepless night, Rachel made a decision. She would stay with James, enduring the abuse until she could find a way out. "I'll tolerate this until I can stand on my own," Rachel whispered to herself. The thought haunted her. Was she sacrificing her happiness for security? Days turned into weeks, and Rachel's resolve weakened. James's abuse continued, chipping away at her soul. One evening, as James's anger boiled over, Rachel realized she couldn't stay. "I deserve better," Rachel declared, her voice barely above a whisper. But where would she go? The question still lingered. One evening, James arrived home with a surprise. He walked in with a woman, his arm around her waist. Rachel's heart sank. "Who is she?" Rachel asked, trying to hide her shock. "This is Emily," James said, his voice cold. "She'll be staying with us." Rachel's mind reeled. "What? Why?" she stuttered. James shrugged. "Emily needs a place to stay, and I figured we have an extra room." The guest room, once a sanctuary for Rachel, was now being offered to this stranger. James's eyes locked onto Rachel's. "You'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Emily will take your place." Rachel felt a stab of humiliation. "You can't be serious," she protested. James's expression turned menacing. "Do as I say, Rachel, before I beat the hire out of you now." Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she gathered her belongings and moved to the guest room. Emily watched with a smug smile, her eyes flashing triumph. Emily settled into James's home, manipulating the situation to her advantage. She played the victim, telling James that Rachel was hostile and unwelcoming. James, already prone to abuse, believed Emily's lies. Tensions escalated between James and Rachel. Emily fueled the fire. "Rachel's jealous of me," Emily would say, batting her eyelashes at James. James's anger turned on Rachel. "You're always so possessive," he snapped. Rachel protested, but James wouldn't listen. He began to beat her mercilessly. Emily watched with a satisfied smile, her eyes gleaming with malice. Rachel's bruises multiplied, her spirit shrinking. One night, James's rage nearly killed Rachel. Emily's laughter echoed in the background. Rachel realized she had to escape, but where could she go? Emily's grip on James tightened. She convinced him to cut Rachel off from her friends and family. Rachel's isolation deepened. She felt trapped, alone, and helpless. James's abuse intensified, Emily goading him on. Rachel's hope dwindled. Would she ever break free? One day, Rachel discovered Emily's true identity, James's mistress. The truth sparked a fire within Rachel. She vowed to fight back. One day, Emily concocted a lie, telling James that Rachel was planning to leave him. James's anger simmered, waiting to boil over. Emily fueled the fire, whispering poisonous words in James's ear. "Rachel's been seeing someone else," Emily lied. "She's going to leave you for him." James's face turned red with rage. He stormed into the room where Rachel was. "Under my roof? How dare you, Rachel? Is it true?" James bellowed, his fists clenched. Rachel protested, "No, James, that's not true." But James wouldn't listen. His anger exploded, and he beat Rachel mercilessly. Rachel's screams echoed through the house, but Emily just watched. "Stop, James. Please." Rachel begged, her voice fading. James's fury wouldn't subside. He punched and kicked Rachel until she lay motionless. Emily's smile grew wider as Rachel's life slipped away. The silence was deafening. Rachel's body went limp. James stood panting, his chest heaving with exertion. Emily's voice cut through the silence. "What have you done, James? You killed her." "I never asked you to kill her, so you are a murderer," Emily said with a fearful voice. James's eyes widened in horror as he realized what he'd done. Rachel lay lifeless on the floor, her eyes frozen in terror. James's world crumbled. He'd lost control, and now Rachel was gone. Mr. Thompson, the elderly neighbor from across the street who had witnessed James abuse his wife many times, saw James as he was punching his wife that night, picked his phone and called 911. The police arrived, responding to Mr. Thompson's call. James was arrested, charged with Rachel's murder. Before the police could arrive, Emily slipped away, disappearing into the shadows. The trial was a blur. James's defense crumbled under evidence, guilty of first-degree murder. James's sentence, life without parole. As James sat in his cell, he realized too late, he'd been manipulated, used by Emily's cunning. Rachel's memory haunted him, forever etched.